Have you ever really stopped to think about where the US federal government gets its power? It's not magic, that's for sure. It's actually a blueprint, one that was carefully designed over 200 years ago. So today, we're going to explore the architectural foundations of federal power. It's a huge question, right? And it's one that shapes pretty much every part of American life. I mean, where does the power to make our laws, manage our public lands, and deal with other countries actually come from? To get the answer, we have to unroll the original blueprint. So let's try to think of the Constitution a little differently. Not just as a legal document, but more like an architectural plan. It carefully lays out the whole design for federal power, creating a structure that was built to last. And at the absolute heart of this blueprint, you'll find 5 foundational pillars. These are the core supports for the entire federal structure. So what do you say we build this thing, pillar by pillar, right now? Okay, let's start with the economic engine of the country. The first 2 pillars are all about governing the flow of money, goods, and services. You know, the stuff that shapes the entire American marketplace. First up is the commerce power. And folks, this one is a really big deal. It gives the federal government the authority to regulate all kinds of trade, not just between the states, but with other countries too. The blueprint is super specific here. This power comes straight out of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Its job is to regulate commerce and, maybe most importantly, to override any state laws that try to get in the way. This was totally revolutionary at the time because it was meant to create one single, unified national economy and stop states from acting like their own little economic kingdoms. Now, paired up with the commerce power is the navigation power. This gives the federal government specific control over the nation's navigable waters. You know, think of major rivers, lakes, and all the coastal areas that are essential for shipping and trade. And this is where the blueprint gets really clever. The navigation power isn't actually spelled out word for word. Instead, it's implied from the Commerce Clause. The idea was, hey, how can you possibly regulate commerce if you can't regulate the rivers and ports that carry all the goods? This also kicks in something called admiralty jurisdiction, which is basically just a special set of federal laws for any legal fights that happen out on the water. So, to put it simply, the commerce power is the big, broad authority over the whole economic system. The navigation power, that's a more specific tool used to govern the actual physical pathways, the waterways of that commerce. Okay, so we've got the flow of commerce covered. Now, what about the very ground the nation is built on? Our next pillar deals with that physical foundation, the property and territory of the United States. This is the property power. It gives the federal government the authority to manage a huge portfolio of real, tangible things. We're talking everything from those sprawling national parks and forests to military bases, federal buildings, and even U.S. territories. You can find this power anchored directly in Article 4 of the Constitution. Its functions sound simple, but it is vast. It gives Congress the authority to manage and make rules for all property that belongs to the United States. All right, with our economic and physical foundations in place, every good structure needs some protective walls. These next 2 pillars define how the federal government deals with the rest of the world and, of course, how it protects the nation from harm. First is the treaty power. This is the authority of the federal government, specifically the president with the Senate's approval, to make binding agreements with other countries. This power is sitting right there in Article 2. Which is all about the executive branch. And here's its superpower. A ratified treaty can actually override conflicting state laws. And that's absolutely crucial, because it makes sure the entire nation speaks with one single voice on the world stage. And our final pillar is maybe the most powerful of all, the defense power. This is the broad, sweeping authority to protect the country and provide for the common defense. Now, this power isn't just drawn from one little line. It comes from several different clauses in Article 1, Section 8, giving Congress the power to declare war, to raise armies, and to organize a militia. But the way it's been applied is incredibly broad, justifying a massive range of activities, all in the name of national security. So just how broad is it? Well, the defense power has been used to justify everything from building the entire interstate highway system, which was originally for military transport, to authorizing surveillance programs and rolling out emergency regulations during a crisis. It is an incredibly powerful and flexible tool in the federal government's toolbox. So, we've laid the foundations and we have raised the walls. Let's take a step back and just look at the finished structure we've put together and see how these 5 pillars create a complete framework for federal power. And there they are, all together. You've got the commerce and navigation powers running the economy, the property power managing all the nation's physical assets, and the treaty and defense powers protecting it on the world stage. Each pillar is totally distinct, but they all interlock to support the authority of the federal government. And that brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with. This blueprint was designed over 200 years ago. Now, in an age of the internet, global pandemics, and cyber warfare, are these ancient foundations still the right ones for the 21st century? That's a pretty big question worth asking. Thanks for digging into this with me.